Now, you and I are both familiar with the PRX, a watch that's restarted the integrated bracelet craze and become a sensation for new and old collectors alike. The watch itself, however, isn't exactly the top of the price range, and due to being just so unbelievably popular, in my personal opinion at least, it's gotten a little boring. So here are 10 other options for your integrated bracelet desires that start from £380 and end at around £1,500. Starting with the most affordable proposition, the Citizen Tsuyosa Small Seconds, with around equal finishing to the PRX and an even nicer dial in my opinion, a £400 full RRP price tag, though it can be found a lot cheaper, and an in-house Miyota 8000 series 3Hz movement. This watch is a steal. Now, if you didn't know, Citizen is a Seiko competitor. By that I mean it is a more affordable and very mass-produced Japanese brand that make their own in-house calibers, Seiko with their NH series and Citizen with their Miyota series. The Miyota 8000 is about probably NH35 level, a little bit above that, so it's not incredible per se. Miyota 9000 is a lot better. However, it is still a very good movement, it's still very reliable and accurate enough, and the watch itself has better finishing and a nicer dial than the PRX in my opinion, for less money. Inspired by the Arsenale of Venice, the ancient shipyard that for centuries represented the heart of technological innovation in the Serenissima, the Venezianico Arsenal is our next pick, coming in at £550 with better finishing than the PRX, a Miyota 9029, which is actually debatably on the same tier as the Powermatic 80 in the PRX as it has a plastic escapement, but weirdly enough only the PRX version, not the Powermatic 80s. Anyways, as well as this, we have an incredible dial and a clean brand logo, overall making for a better made watch for less money than the PRX. Now this is a less known and smaller Italian brand. I can't think of any other big Italian brands on the market at the moment, but they are up and coming and they are very respectable. They make good quality watches, they're very good value for money, their propositions are generally pretty good, and I think that this is probably their best model. I think the purple dial looks really clean. Moving on to my favourite pick of the video now, inspired by the Vacheron Constantin Royal from the early 70s, we have the Maen Manhattan. Now not only is this watch an extremely cool and unique shape, but it's also what I'd say is the best value for money watch in the video, with mine having top end finishing for its price range, very reliable Solita movements of which you can pick the grade, and some of the best style finishing and applied indices in anywhere near the price range. Now mine, which I call it mine, it's M-A-E-N, but it's actually pronounced man apparently. It is a Dutch company, and something that's quite interesting is that man, or mine, is actually the Old Dutch spelling for moon. Moon of course being historically related as a symbol of time. Now this comes in 37 and 39mm, and I actually am going to be reaching out to this brand, mine, relatively soon because I want to work with them. I love this brand that much. This is not sponsored or anything, but I think they make the best watches in the $1,000 range, without question. I have a watchmaker friend called Lincoln, who is a watchmaker in America at the moment working for Rolex, becoming a watchmaking student at Rolex, but he already has a few years experience in watchmaking, and even he says that their finishing, their reliability, movements, value for money, all of their propositions are top of the top. Next we have a lesser known micro brand, the Dorenzo DRZ04 Mondial. This timepiece has an Elabor grade SW200 with top grade specs, which all watches in this price range will have to be fair, such as 316L stainless steel, sapphire crystals, etc. But the finishing is not quite mine level, but definitely it is above the PRX. Now this watch has an SW200 movement. If you don't know what that is, it's a Solita movement which is based on an ETA movement. ETA, however, cannot be sold or bought off the shelf. They have to supply it to the manufacturer, whereas Solita can. So originally there was the ETA 2824. The SW200 is a copy of that, but debatably just as good if not better, and the Powermatic 80 is a knockoff of the SW200. so it is 2 knockoffs from the original ETA 2824. The reason that I've included this brand over others which are similar to the price range is because their finishing is very good for the money, but I also just really like the design. I think it's a little bit more of a fun and out there design than the others on this list, which are all very PRX similar like, if you know what I mean, whereas this watch definitely has its own identity. With a few dial options and an in-house movement, we have the Yema Urban Traveller / Wristmaster Traveller. Now yes, the movement in these isn't exactly at the same level as an SW200 and debatably just under even a Miyota 9000 series. However, the fact it's in-house makes it a lot more interesting and a lot more unique than an SW200 or Miyota 9000, with barely losing much accuracy or reliability if we're being honest. That aside, the finishing is incredible and the dial is superb. Now Yemma is a French brand and I really like their vintage stuff. This, of course, I think is also really nice, but I would personally rather have the Maen Manhattan over this. They're very similar case shapes and such. I also prefer the proportions of the Maen Manhattan, but if you like this design, it's a great pick. Again, great value for money, really good finishing, better than the PRX in every conceivable way. Yes, it's a little bit more money, but it's definitely worth it in my opinion. And yes, the movement, as I said, isn't quite on par with others in the price range, which are off the shelf, but the fact that they're in-house just make them so much more fun, and the difference in reliability we're talking about is 1 in 1,000, and the difference in accuracy is 1 or 2 seconds a day, so it's really not that big a deal. Moving away from micro brands, we have the Certina DS7. Now yes, this does use a Powermatic 80 movement. However, as stated before, the PRX is the only Powermatic 80 that uses plastic escapements, which really hurt the longevity of the watch. Other than the new carbon PRX actually, that's got a normal Powermatic 80, for whatever reason they haven't implemented that in the normal PRX, but whatever. Anyways, the Certina DS7 has a well-known brand name, a slightly better movement, and better finishing than the PRX, with, in my opinion, a more classy and classic dial if that's what you're looking for. Now this is a Swiss brand. Again, I love the vintage. Similar to Yemma, this brand I like specifically for their vintage. Again, this is a watch I think is nice and that I would pick up if I was in the market for it, but their vintage stuff is what my love lies for. They even have chronometer grade Swiss stuff, which is, you know, solid gold dress watches from the 70s, 80s, 90s. They're just gorgeous in my opinion. I really do like them. I will say that this design is a little bit bashed by some people. Some people think it's weirdly proportioned, and I do agree to an extent. However, designs are subjective, so if you like it, go for it. There's no reason not to. It's a well-made watch objectively. The only issue is that its design is a bit off for some people. Introduced in the 70s, the Nivada Grenchen F77 is a well-rounded, renowned and beloved classic. Now we are starting to get on the less affordable side of things now, so it's not a surprise that the F77 beats the PRX in every single regard. However, it is still a great value proposition and gives that same type of feel as a PRX, just higher end, hence why it makes the list. The dial I also find interesting. Not only is it more unique than most dials I see, but somehow the watch itself seems to look both very classy and classical, but also at the same time very industrial, which I think is quite interesting, being able to balance those two opposing forces somehow. As well as that, the brand has lots of history, and it's a true enthusiast brand that a lot of people love. You knew it would be on here, the Christopher Ward 12, with a really interesting dial texture that is a 3-dimensional logo that tapers off in all 4 directions, and an incredibly well finished bracelet and case, plus the all-reliable SW200, it's not surprising that this has become known as the PRX's superior big brother. Now, if you couldn't tell, I am British, very British, so I like the fact that this brand is British. That's going to be another thing for me, but if we're talking about the watch itself, it's a very nice design. The finishing on the bracelet is really good. I will say though that the Maen, is actually similar level to that. Maybe even debatably on the same level for, you know, a lot less money. So I'm just trying to point out that Man, however you pronounce it, they are really good watches. But anyway, Christopher Ward 12, it's amazing. 40mm, 36mm, it has proportions for everyone. The dials are incredible, the movement is very reliable, and their quality control is really good. With another ETA alternative, the Straum Jan Mayen comes next. kitted with a La Jouperet LJP G101. This timepiece is not only one of the best finished watches in its price range, but has probably my favourite dials, with just incredible Grand Seiko level texturing, and one of the better integrated bracelet designs that I've seen, at least in my opinion. This timepiece also, for some unknown reason, has more of a particularly luxurious look and feel to it to me. I'm not sure why that's the case, because it's only as good as other watches on the list, but I really do think that it stands out for some reason. Now, it's Swiss, again, reliable, specifications are amazing, finishing is really, really good on this one, and the dial just takes the cake. I mean, Seiko's known for their dials. This is Seiko level pricing, but it has a better dial and better finishing and better everything. It's just a really good watch, and you should check it out if you're into a bigger integrated bracelet watch. Like if you're looking at the 40mm PRX, this is a good substitute. Yes, it's more money, but it's better in every single regard, so you can't really fault it for that. Ending our list, we have the good old Maurice Lacroix Aikon. This is a favourite amongst many watch enthusiasts I'm close with, as its design and dial just looks so good together. Pair that with Longines level finishing, a brand name that has history and recognition, and a vast array of choices in the model, and you have yourself a much higher end PRX alternative with more choices. One thing to note here particularly, which goes for all of the watches stated, but for this Maurice Lacroix Aikon in particular, is that you should really look in the grey market for this. Second hand, you can get them either unworn or literally new, or even just mint. You can get them for 50% off if you're lucky and you look around, because the brand doesn't hold as much prestige as other brands do, but even though that's the case, it's a really frigging good watch, and I think it's a great option. In fact, I've seen them go for about PRX price. Seriously, and they are objectively better in every single regard, obviously other than design, because design is subjective, but in my personal opinion, the design's also nicer than the PRX. I also, again, quite like their vintage stuff, and I think it's just a really underappreciated and underloved brand for what it is. It should be more well known and more regarded. Anyways, that takes us to the end of the video. I do appreciate you watching. Hit that like and sub if you don't mind. And always remember, time keeps ticking, so use the time you have wisely.